Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Brittany Piquel with Next Generation, and I have on the phone with me as well Richard Ehrlich from Secure Wealth Planning Group. And today we're going to talk to you about self-directed IRAs, as we typically do, but we also wanted to provide you with a more holistic kind of approach to smart retirement planning. And Rich is going to spend some time talking about that with you guys to start. So he'll cover that, and then we'll get into the specifics of when it comes to alternative investments and self-directed IRAs. So should be just about an hour today out of respect for everyone's time. Just a couple quick points. This session will be recorded. So whether or not you attended, as long as you registered, you will receive this recording in a follow-up email. There are some survey questions at the end, just 3 questions. If you have any feedback you're willing to share, we would appreciate it. We also did take a look at questions that some of you submitted when you registered, letting us know what you wanted to learn today. So we tried to incorporate that into the session today. And if you have any questions as we go through the material, feel free to enter them into the question box. You should see that on the right-hand side of your screen on the control panel. And we're just going to go through this, and then at the end, we're going to take some time out to field your questions. With that, I'll turn it over to Rich, and we'll get started.
Well, welcome everybody, and I'm glad that you took the time out of your day today to do what most people are failing to do, and that's looking to navigate some of the challenges that are going to be facing most Americans as they head on into retirement. So the title of our presentation today is Smart Retirement Planning, and we're going to be sharing with you just some key concepts that most people that I see around the country are missing. So let's just dive right in. So here's what you can be thinking. Here's what you can be expecting to learn today: is 1, the retirement pitfalls, a retirement nest egg, fiduciary versus liability, and the distinction between traditional and alternative assets, and then also the introduction to self-directed IRAs, alternative investment assets inside a retirement plan. So as we get ready, just a quick background about myself. My name is Richard Ehrlich. I am the president and founder of a company called the Secure Wealth Planning Group, working with pre- and post-retirees for close to 25 years now. And I'm also a certified instructor with a nonprofit financial education firm called the Heartland Institute of Education, Financial Education. So we're really excited about sharing this information. And some of the areas that we focus in on are pension and distribution planning, 401k and IRA rollovers, the income planning piece, preserving what you're working so hard to accumulate, and then also creating retirement cash flow analysis. So a couple of things to consider as we get started. Just a little bit more background about us. Once again, you guys will get the copy of these slides. Get a copy of this presentation, and a little bit about some of the areas that I've been featured in. And this is just a quick disclaimer, as we live in a world of attorneys. This is not meant to provide any tax information. This is really hypothetical and just more educational, which is critical for everybody to know. Okay, as we dive in, so as I go around the country, I always ask people, I said, what would your retirement wish list look like? And the first thing is, we'd love to eliminate costly taxes. A lot of people don't realize that taxes are going to be the #1 expense in retirement. Number 2, minimizing stock market risk. I think all of you on the call here recognize that the market has been and can be very volatile. We also want to guarantee our income for life, preferably tax-free. And if we could do that, that'd be wonderful, right? We all would love safety and protection along the way. Certainty. We live in a world of so much uncertainty, whether it be political, whether it be geopolitical. There's all kinds of risks. We even have a new risk called a tweet risk, right? When the president says something, we don't know what's going to happen. And so we want to try to create an element of certainty around our own planning. We want to have access to our money. So important. And obviously have control of our plan and our money. So there are 4 key retirement risks. Retirement risk number 1 is longevity risk. You know, the great news is that we're all living longer. But that's also a challenge, because most people are going to wind up living longer in retirement than they were actually working. So what that means is after you've hopefully done a good job accumulating all this money, you have to make sure that that money lasts 20, 30, or even 40 years in retirement. That's a very big challenge. Second thing is interest rate risks. You know, we've had 10 years basically of of earning almost nothing on our money if you kept it in the bank. But now as interest rates start to rise, that's kind of spooking out the stock market. So that's a key component as we move forward. Market risk, that's no surprise here. You can see what's been going on with the market recently and as of late, and that's certainly a key concern if we don't want to potentially lose large chunks of our money anywhere along the way, certainly right as we're about to retire or as we get into retirement. And then finally, tax risk. I told you that taxes will be the most, taxes will be the biggest expense you have in retirement. And the great news with the new tax law changes this year, there are a lot of really terrific opportunities to move money from taxable to tax-free accounts. That's going to be very critical. So here are some of the concerns, right? Working into retirement, people are working much, much longer. As I told you before, longer life expectancy. Recently, Hallmark said last year they sold over 10,000 Centurion cards. So think about that. New standard of living. You know, the cost of living today is a lot more expensive. You break your iPhone, you know, it's $1,000. Okay, inflation. That's going to be so important. If you're living in retirement for 10, 20, 30 years, the same amount of money that you're taking out for income when you first started will not buy the same amount of goods and services, you know, 10, 20, 30 years down the road. Social Security it might not be adequate for retirement. You'll see how many people actually are living off Social Security. Insufficient personal savings. People are struggling to get the right amount of money saved. And then median income is down. So those are key concerns as we head towards retirement. Social Security may not be adequate. So if you take a look at this, you know, we could have a whole separate webinar just on Social Security, but these are just some key points to let you guys know is that that if you rely on this program in 2035, you could receive less money in Social Security. So there are people who are out there who are taking Social Security, and the chance of there being shortfalls in there, their income could be reduced by 21%. That's not a fun thing for most people. And then the statistic shows that for many retired adults, that could be a big hit. Social Security is a dominant source of income for nearly half of all married couples, 71% of them being elderly beneficiaries. So it's so critical to factor in that and create other streams of income in your retirement plan and not just rely on this. Another concern is pensions. We used to live in a world, right, you worked for a company for 40 years, they sent you off with a gold watch and something called a pension. And this chart just highlights that the blue line is the decreasing amount of pension plans. Today, just less than 3% of all companies offer a pension plan. Pension plans is when the company guarantees you the check forever. The red line is the rise of the self-directed plans, which are employer-based plans, for example, 401k plans. So what they've done in essence is they have shifted the risk from the company to the individual, and that's where the challenge of the investment comes in. Baby boomers are retiring. This is amazing. You know, if you look at the statistics, there are 10,000 people turning age 65 every single day, and that will happen for the next 17 years. Big concern because typically those people are not putting money into the stock market, they're taking out of it. And there's a lot of other factors as well that go in there. Healthcare. Many people, when I discuss their planning, they forget this. The average couple will need close to $300,000 just for healthcare and medical costs. So if you've done this great job and you've saved $1 million, nearly a third of that money is just going to be allocated just for healthcare. This is interesting that every year there's always a survey done. AARP does a survey, and what they do is they ask retirees what their #1 fear about retirement is. and their number one fear is that they're going to run out of money. You know what their number two fear is? Death. That basically means that people are more scared about living longer than their money will last. So it's so critical to create an income plan, because what I always tell people is that the day you retire, it's not about assets, it's about income. So important to create an income plan and build your retirement not on the amount of assets you have, but on the amount of income those assets will generate, to make sure that they last as long as you do during retirement, and factoring in inflation. So two important questions I always ask. Number one is, how much risk can you afford to take? And how much risk are you willing to take? And for every person on this call today, you know, only you can answer that question. But these are very, very important questions to answer. Now, what I noticed after reviewing accounts over almost 25 years, people know how much money they have. Here's how much I have in my 401k or my IRA or investment accounts. But here's the problem. Many don't know what they can expect from that money. Okay, I have this money. Well, now I'm not working anymore. I need a certain amount of money to live. Here are my expenses. How do I figure that out? So important to create a written income plan. So how do you get to the solution? So it's critical to understand the motivation behind the person offering you financial products or advice. This is a really key component. You know, so often, if you're good at what you're doing with work, you know, you're really not spending the time, or should you know all the details behind this and how to make all these things come together. And if you may have heard, it's been in the news quite a bit over the last 2 years, is this concept of fiduciary versus suitability. And so if somebody's working with an Edward Jones person, or Fidelity, or Wells Fargo, you name it, those people all fall under what they call a suitability standard, which is a very low standard. Okay, the fiduciary standard is acting in the best interest of a client. So the most important factor is what any decision or any recommendation is saying, what is in the best interest of the client. The brokers, which once again, the Morgan Stanleys, the Merrill Lynch's, the Raymond James, the insurance companies, they have what they call, that's a much lower standard. It's called the suitability standard. And all they have to do is they have to say, okay, well, we think this might work for somebody. They have a specific selection of investments to choose from. They're paid commissions from those companies to sell those products. And those products may not be in the best interest of you and your overall financial plan. Think about all the articles that are in the paper almost on a weekly basis with Wells Fargo misrepresenting a lot of their products. And it's not limited to them, it's limited to that whole broker world. It's so crucial to work with a fiduciary. Just to summarize, fiduciary is client-focused. Advice is in the best interest of the client, including the disclosure of any possible conflicts of interest. I mean, I think that's the way it should be, right? But a suitability is product-focused. Is it suitable according to the risk and objectives, and does the client have enough assets to purchase this financial product? Two key components. And then the reason why the advisors and advisory firms are called this is because they offer unbiased advice, which is in the best interest of the client. And they charge a fee based upon giving that advice. Brokers are called that, or representatives, because they act on behalf of the broker-dealer that they work for, and they sell you a financial product or commission. Typically, we're going to learn about some things today that a lot of people say, well, how come my broker never told me about this? Well, either they're not licensed to sell it, or it's not on their platform. So why would they sell you something that's not on their platform? I mean, if you go into a Ford dealership, it's very unlikely they're going to recommend anything other than a Ford. So that's really what a broker does. So having a plan is so key. All right. First of all, you need to have stability. If you had a stool with only 2 legs, how stable would that be? Not so stable. So what we have to do is, in order to achieve stability in a retirement plan, it must contain 3 critical elements. Number one, leg number one, it must be able to produce automatic income throughout your lifetime. Because without income, you don't have a retirement. Leg number two is it must have a dedicated method for regrowing and replenishing your principal throughout your lifetime. And leg number 3, it must have the ability to provide you with liquid money for emergencies and unexpected expenses throughout your lifetime without wrecking legs number 1 and 2. So an example of a retirement nest egg, leg number 1 would be you'd have just an account that would focus on generating income. Leg number 2 would be just focused on growing and regrowing principal of that account to make sure it doesn't go down anymore. And leg number 3 is creating that emergency cash position. So leg number 1 should have automatically increasing retirement income for the rest of its life. Now, here's what I always tell people: there is no one product that does everything. So the financial tools that are out there that are good for generating income are typically not good for generating growth. So you need to create a plan where it's just focused, and we use the tools that are available that will help achieve this most important aspect of our plan. Leg number 2, and to continue on that, you have to make sure that you have monthly income for the rest of your life, but also that will keep paying that income long after your original deposit runs out. So for example, you want to make sure that if you had a certain amount of money in your account, that money will never deplete from that income. You want to sort of create a stair-step effect where you automatically get a raise in your retirement every few years, and that will counter inflation. So important. And you want to make sure that the plan that you put on that's on autopilot can never run out, and so importantly, never be it cannot be negatively affected by a stock market downturn. A lot of people got hurt in the last 2 market downturns because all of their money was in one type of an account, and when that account went down, well, guess what? So did their income. Leg number 2, you might want to use an account like assets under management for growth and preservation, right? We use institutional managers that have their whole focus is on growing money, but avoiding large drawdowns. We use different artificial intelligence and so on and so forth, but the key thing is to ensure that this grows in a very safe and consistent way, and that will continue to maintain and preserve what you originally started with when you retired. And this is the key point. By containing all of your market-based investments solely within leg 2 of your plan, you can keep your market risk isolated, almost like an island unto itself, and totally separate from the money you have already dedicated for income. You'll see why this is so important, because now you'll have a separate account just for emergency cash position. And having this extra bucket of spare cash that is kept totally separate from the income leg and the growth leg, it sort of acts as a shield of protection for the rest of the plan. See, this way, if something unexpected happens, you don't have to raid or break into your income and growth buckets, which could disrupt your the important purpose and function that they're already serving. So a lot of people think these are complicated. It's really easy to customize. First of all, you can set it up in a mathematically correct solution, preserve plans, and there's many, many different types of assets you can use: cash, 401ks, IRAs, and self-directed IRAs, which is a key component that most Americans are missing, and we're going to be talking about that later on. It can include full survivor benefits to make sure whatever we set up goes to your spouse or heirs, and even bypass probates. You don't have to worry about anybody finding out about what you've done. They can also provide automatic inflation adjustments, so important, by using this laddering process. You can also have things that have contractual guarantees, sort of like Social Security. And then they provide also, so by doing this, you provide a healthy, balanced approach, and now you say, hey, I have my whole plan set up. I have this bucket of money or leg is just going to be providing me for the income and growth and inflation. I have another account that I can be more growth oriented with, and I always want to make sure that I'm maintaining principal. And we want to, and with this, you also have a liquid bucket of money. You know what? If the roof, you have to repair the roof, you want to go on vacation, whatever it may be, that money is there, and you have peace of mind going through retirement, which is so important. But the key is to set things up, beforehand. And once you do that, it's something that you just monitor on an annual basis. So ideally, what we focus on as a fiduciary, we focus on unbiased fiduciary advice. So important. We work for our clients, not a particular company or product. Diversification. You do not want to be overexposed to any one asset class. We teach at universities around the country, and we try to explain to people that what the hot asset was this year may not be the hot asset next year. So diversification makes up about 92% of the success of your overall investment plan. And you also want to create income in retirement. The distribution phase is probably the most, most people are not familiar with the distribution phase. Wall Street has promoted how to accumulate money, and nobody's talking to people about how to take the money out. And you have to factor in taxes and many other areas of planning, which we discussed. So as a fiduciary, we have to research potential investments for our clients, and that means going outside of the box using traditional investments. So what I do is go outside the box, right? In addition to stocks, bonds, and mutual funds and ETFs, I research alternatives to give my clients more options to succeed. And some of the tools that I offer to my clients to be successful, once again, we're not going to talk about it today, but Solomon API, this is an artificial intelligence institutional money management platform, which is amazing. It takes all of the emotion out of investing and uses super low ETFs, and the clients love that. Asset Lock. This is a monitoring. This is a software that monitors your portfolio, whether you're still working in a 401k. It can go on any brokerage account. And if you're interested, let me know at the end. This could be put on any one of your accounts at no cost to you. So just let us know, and we'll send you the link how to set that up. This is so important. How many people would have liked to have this in 2000 and 2008? Self-directed IRAs. We're going to talk about that today. Such an important part of the planning process that people are missing. And non-correlating assets. You want to be able to create investments in your account that if one area of investing is not performing, the other area will. And that's what we call balance in a plan. Okay? Non-correlating assets. Look, this is a recent article in Forbes, right? I mean, I don't have to tell anybody. We've all seen what the market's been doing lately. And there's a potential, I could not tell you any more than you know, of when the market's going to have a significant downturn, but they are talking about something very substantial happening. And so I'll give an example of Mark Cuban, pretty successful guy. He owned just a handful of stocks, and he was in an interview with CNBC back in August 13th of this year. He says, look, I'm on the sidelines. I'm making some other adjustments. This is key important. It's important to know that you have to have a plan before things go in a direction you're not comfortable with. Self-directed retirement accounts. Most Americans are missing this piece of the puzzle. And there's a reason why. By the way, and there's only about less than 500,000 of self-directed IRA accounts in the country. Now think about that. There are 300 million people living in this country, and less than 500,000 people have that. And maybe you can guess why that is. Do you think the Fidelities and the Wells Fargos and the Merrill Lynches and the Raymond James, you think they want you to have a self-directed retirement account? No, because guess what? That's not what they offer. It's not under their model. So they're never going to recommend that. As a fiduciary, we have to go out and do what's in the best interest of the client, and this is a missing piece that most people are missing. Just quickly, I'll just show you Mitt Romney in the last election cycle. They found out that he had $25 million in his Roth IRA. And that was a self-directed IRA. That was not through stocks and bonds. He was able to use alternative investments. Self-directed retirement accounts, there are $7.3 trillion in IRA accounts. 96% of them are standard IRAs. Only 4% of them are self-directed IRAs. So most people are missing this. And 75% of retirees will not reach financial freedom in their retirement with their current strategy. So what are some of the things that they can be doing? So here to tell us more about how self-directed retirement plans work, the guts, the 101 of it, is Brittany Pickel. She's the Director of Marketing Sales for Next Generation Services. And with that, Brittany, please share with us and everybody the details on self-directed retirement accounts.
Thanks, Rich. That was great. Perfect timing as well. I appreciate that. All right. So Rich talked to you about, kind of the vision for overall retirement planning, and then the importance of self-directed plans as a component of that. So I just want to dive into that component a little bit more here for the next 20 minutes or so, just so everyone understands kind of what they are, how they work. As you can tell, they're not kind of widely marketed. So I'm just going to jump right in here. Just real quick, as far as Next Generation and what we actually do as it relates to self-directed retirement plans, we're actually not a fiduciary and we're not a broker. We're none of those things. So we're a neutral third party. However, that means that if you do have a self-directed retirement plan, you can use an advisor if they are an independent advisor to help you to look at different alternative investment options related to the plan. But as an organization, our primary role is to custody the plan, so hold the plan, provide the record keeping and administration related to the plan and all the reporting associated with it. And then obviously, like we're doing today, provide education to investors who are interested in this as a strategy so that they can make the best decisions for themselves. So just quick background on the company. We are a privately held, women-owned business. Jamie Raskulnik founded the company in 2004. She was part of a network of companies prior to that that also handled self-directed IRAs. But her long-term goal was to, start her own organization. So she did that. And she also has a pretty extensive real estate background. So as you can imagine, when we're talking about alternatives in a retirement plan, real estate is one of those assets that you see very commonly held in these types of plans. And Jamie's background enabled her to kind of understand how real estate works with self-directed IRAs. She's a licensed broker as well. She actually has another business that she owns, which is a property management company. But to date, we hold over $600 million in alternative assets. And I'm going to talk to you about here the components of the organization and what this means if you're an investor and you have a plan. So in order to have any retirement account, you need to have a custodian and administrator. So the custodian is basically the trustee of the plan. So they're going to hold title to whatever assets are held within the plan, and they should be a regulated entity. So Next Generation is a custodian. We're a trust company, and that trust company is regulated by the Banking Commission. And so your custodian is basically going to hold all the information related to your plan and produce whatever documentation you need to report to the friendly IRS from a tax perspective. But then the other component of that is the administrator, and that's the group that you're going to speak to related to any customer service that you're looking for, questions about your account. If you're looking to do an investment with your account, you're going to speak to somebody that's going to represent the administrator of your account that can act on behalf of the retirement plan to process any transactions, whether you're purchasing something, you're selling something, you're making a withdrawal from your account, you're making a deposit into your account. And so our administrative arm is located in New Jersey, in Roseland, Essex County, pretty close to Newark. And so if you called about an account, anyone you'd speak to would be representing the Next Generation Services in New Jersey. Again, just a quick disclaimer as well. This is for educational purposes, and as I said before, we are not a fiduciary, although obviously Rich talked about that, and that is an important component. But since we're not, we actually can't advise on investments. Since we're holding the plans, we don't necessarily tell you what you can or should invest in. We're more focused on fulfilling those custodial and administration responsibilities. So what actually is a self-directed IRA? How is it different from the IRAs that are held by the Fidelities and the Morgan Stanleys of the world? It's just essentially a retirement plan like any other that allows you to invest in non-publicly traded alternative assets. And so basically what we're saying is this is a way to diversify your retirement portfolio by investing in things that aren't publicly traded, not subject to the same stock market volatility. And with that, if you have experience investing in certain types of alternative assets like real estate, for example, and we'll talk about other options as well, then it gives you a little bit more control over your retirement account to invest in things that you might have a skill in, you know, and understand. And the hope of that is that you're able to control or have a better impact on the return on investment that you're getting. Obviously, in addition to that, if the funds are coming out of a retirement plan and the investments being made in the name of the retirement plan, then any income associated with that investment is going to go back into your retirement account, just like it would be with any other. And that keeps your funds tax advantaged. In most plans, if you have a tax deferred account, then your earnings will be tax deferred. Or if you have a Roth like Mitt Romney, then your earnings are tax free. So there are a couple different strategies and different ways to set it up. That's something that would be a good discussion for either a tax advisor or a financial advisor, financial planner, for sure. But basically, you can see that it's just a way to open up the number of allowable investments, and not to say that you should put all your eggs in one basket and have everything in alternatives. Again, diversification, but definitely important to be aware of this as an option. So in terms of the types of plans that you can establish and hold as self-directed plans, you'll see your traditional and Roth IRAs, as I just mentioned, and the differences between those. If you're a business owner, you can establish a SEP IRA or simple IRA or another type of qualified plan like a solo 401k. You can set that up for your business, and then you can use those funds to do alternative investing. The others that aren't as common, but I think people should also be aware of because these are some pretty neat tools. The Coverdell Education Savings Account to help save for a child's education. I was just reading a recent Gallup poll of non-retired investors, and they talked about different goals that they had for retirement, or different financial goals, I should say. And saving for a child's education was on the list. And unfortunately, the numbers were really concerning. So 38% of the people that were polled said that they've made no progress saving for a child's education. And I think, obviously other things tend to trump that, right? Like saving for a house, or other things just take priority, and we only have so much, money to play with and to put aside. But I think it's also extremely important. And for anyone who has kids, the cost of education is astronomical today, and the importance of education, should not be, underestimated. So this is one type of account you can establish on behalf of a minor, and then you can basically contribute to it. You can invest with it, and you can increase, the value of that account and withdraw funds tax-free if they're used for qualifying education expenses. And same, obviously, with HSAs. I think most people are familiar with HSAs, but it's not just something to park your cash in and just have it sit there. You can actually strategically invest the funds that go into your HSA, and then you can use those for medical expenses, and even non-medical after a certain age with certain tax implications, but definitely something to be aware of as well. And then just a note that when we talk about contribution limits, how much you can contribute to your retirement plan on an annual basis, the ones that are on the IRS website are the same that apply to self-directed accounts as well. So those types of rules and limits and things of that sort are the same. Same thing with making an early withdrawal before age 59 and a half. That 10% penalty applies. After 59 and a half, you're not subject to the 10% penalty. All those same rules still apply. So let's say you establish an account and now you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I get my funds into this account to start investing? Well, you can pull from other plans that you have. So if you wanted to, take some funds out of another plan and put them into a self-directed, that's your diversification move. So you can, one, personally contribute to your account by basically just depositing funds, again, in accordance with the limits. You can transfer funds. If you have, let's say you opened a self-directed IRA and it was a Roth IRA, and you had a Roth IRA already with Fidelity, and you wanted to move over $20,000 to do an investment. You could, if you have that money tied up in, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, et cetera, you can liquidate that portion that you need, and you can take that cash and transfer it directly over to your self-directed IRA without any tax implication, without a reportable event, right? Because you're just moving funds from one account to another, and they're both for qualified retirement plans. You can also do a rollover. So if you have an old 401k from a company that you no longer work for, you can roll those funds over into a self-directed IRA as well. And then if you wanted to move funds from a tax-deferred account, which would be a traditional IRA, for example, to a Roth, which is going to result in a taxable event, you can do that as well. It's just important to understand the differences between the two. It's not to say that one's better than another. They're just different, and everyone's decisions should be unique related to their situation in terms of what's best for them. But you can see here that there's not really a restriction on being able to take funds from another retirement plan and move it into a self-directed plan. All right, so on to the fun part. What can you actually invest in? So real estate is a huge piece of this, as I mentioned earlier. And within that, we could probably do a whole webinar on real estate. So within that, residential, commercial, undeveloped land, we've had people that invested on the goat farm, coffee farms. There's just all sorts of things. The possibilities are almost endless when it comes to this. And that's what makes this very exciting. You can also see here mortgage notes, really any sort of loans to an individual or to an entity. Those are options. You will see cryptocurrencies on here, although of course lately that's been looking a little dismal, but things of that sort, anything that's not publicly traded, can pretty much be fair game here. Precious metals is another big one. And investing into a startup company. Lots of people, might not have enough cash to purchase a house with their IRA, but maybe they want to contribute to, as a limited partner in an LLC that's going to be investing in real estate. That's also an option as well. So as I said, almost anything. The only restrictions, and all of this is dictated and regulated by the IRS still, are life insurance and collectibles. So those are two asset classes that are not allowed within an IRA at all. So as long as what you're looking at doing doesn't fall into those categories, then you can still, keep it open for consideration. There are some restrictions to be aware of, which I'll touch on in a moment. But here are some just examples in terms of ways that you can invest. If you're purchasing real estate, you can buy it outright. If you need to get a mortgage, that is possible through an IRA, although there are some other requirements to be aware of there. You can also partner with other individuals, basically as a co-owner of a property or of some other sort of asset. You can use your IRA as a lender, or you can borrow through your IRA. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you can invest directly into a privately held entity. So here's where we just want to talk about some restrictions and regulations that are really important to understand when it comes to self-directed plans, and that's why education is key here. And that's why one of our primary goals is to provide education, because what makes this different as a self-directed investor, if you're using an advisor, that's great. If you're not using an advisor, you are responsible for doing all your own due diligence on these investments and making all your own investment decisions. So that's why it's even more important for you to understand what you can and can't do. Of course, having the custodian and administrator to provide you with education helps with that. But essentially, the IRS has, in the Internal Revenue Code, defined what they call disqualified persons or disqualified entities. And what that means is that the people or entities on this list are not allowed to directly transact with your IRA. So when we say IRA holder, we mean you yourself. So you wouldn't be able to, for example, take your IRA and, sell your own house to your IRA, right? So that would be a direct transaction between you yourself personally and your IRA. And since you're disqualified, that wouldn't be something that you could do. Again, you'll see here pretty much A sentence, C sentence, and their spouses. are going to be disqualified persons from your IRA or your self-directed plan. Fiduciaries, and that would be, like Rich said, an advisor. That just means that you're not able to go into an investment with them. You can use their services, but you can't invest, directly with them into some sort of project together. Also, certain business partners, other people providing service to the account, for example, your custodian, like Next Generation or other, and then entities like a company that might be majority owned by disqualified persons. So a common question we get is like, can I invest into my family's business with my IRA? If the business is majority owned by family members that are disqualified persons, then the answer is unfortunately no to that. But there are certain exceptions to the disqualified persons list. The list does not include brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, cousins, in-laws, and there are a couple other exceptions to this. So that's why just understanding what basically who is and is not disqualified is important when you start thinking about what types of investments you might want to do. So then there's just another layer of this, and that's how is the IRA engaging in this transaction, and what types of transactions are not allowed. So these three basically talk about, the first one is really straightforward. So if you're directly buying something from or selling something to, lending to or from a disqualified person, that would be considered prohibited. Extension of credit comes into play commonly when an IRA is going to borrow money and leverage property, for example. You can't personally guarantee a loan through your IRA. So as you can imagine, if you needed to get a mortgage, your IRA needed a mortgage, you wouldn't have the option to personally guarantee that loan. So it would need to be non-recourse loan. And then the last is kind of more gray area. What's called self-dealing is essentially using your IRA to make an investment where you also personally are benefiting in the short term. So an example might be investing into a company where maybe you're a director of the company and you're paying yourself personally, you're being compensated, but your IRA is also invested into the company. So really what you want to think about is doing what's in the best interest of your retirement plan for the long term, because that's what we're talking about today, is planning for our financial futures, and trying not to just do something to get personal benefit, and using your retirement plan in a way that it's not designed to be used. So just important to understand prohibited transactions. And when an investor is working through their custodian administrator to make an investment, part of what we're doing is an administrative review to look for these things. So we're looking for those components that might indicate an issue or a red flag. And then if we do see something that would be problematic, we're coming back to the investor to ask more questions or let them know, unfortunately, in some cases, that this investment is not an option. But the more educated you are up front, the better off you'll be when you make your investment plans, and you'll be able to reduce the risk of that sort of prohibited transaction being a part. So just from a logistical standpoint, if you wanted to do something like this, it's pretty straightforward. You would just need to complete an application to open the account, right, to establish your self-directed retirement plan with your self-directed custodian. And then you would expect to pay, let me just go back and just make a comment here. Expect to pay a small setup fee, usually, to open the account. And then there's an annual administration fee that's going to cover all that work that has to be done on your account. And one thing that makes these plans different from what you're typically used to is that because every investment is different when we're talking about alternative assets, right? We can't value these assets on the stock market. They're not publicly traded. So there's a lot more personal touch that goes into handling each investment and valuing it on an annual basis, and looking through all the documentation. There has to be, pretty much a custom approach to all these things. So that's what the administration fee is going to cover when you pay that to your custodian. And then to process certain investments and transactions, you might be responsible for paying a fee. The second step of the process, once you've opened that account, is funding it. Remember, we talked about options for funding. It can take as little as a few days to several weeks, depending on, now we're getting involved with the custodian of your account, which could be Fidelity, for example, if you have, your funds in an IRA there. Now trying to work through their processes to transfer the money out and over to your new account. They have certain requirements and things of that sort, so we just need to be cognizant of those and make sure that you and we are complying with those. And then the final step is obviously make an investment. So again, you would do your due diligence, and then you would complete some paperwork to basically authorize the investment on behalf of your IRA or your retirement plan. And then your administrator would actually process that after doing that review that I talked about, that administrative review. So just a visual depiction of this, and something that's really important to understand in terms of how the money flows is once you've set up your plan, which is that green bubble there, and you've identified an asset that you want to invest into, you're going to your administrator, right? You're not taking money out of your retirement plan yourself, because that would be considered a distribution, which could be taxable or could incur a penalty, right? So you're talking to them about what you want to do, and then on behalf of your plan, they are sending those funds into the investment that you've elected. When that yields a return, that's going to go directly back into your retirement plan. So all expenses and income associated with your investment flow in and out of the retirement plan, and you're not at any point taking personal receipt of those funds. Of course, you're entitled to take a distribution whenever you'd like. It is your retirement plan, but you just want to make sure that you understand how the money flows and what your roles and responsibilities are. So I know this was tip of the iceberg today because we covered so much. I hope that was a helpful introduction to smart retirement planning and self-directed IRAs as what could be a very valuable component of a retirement plan. If anyone wants to learn more, on our website, there's a ton of information. You can just call the office and speak to someone live immediately. We're on all social media. We present at local meetups in the tri-state area, but we're also around the country at different conferences and events. And of course, these webinars we typically do at least once a month. And I know, Rich, too, that there are ways for the attendees to contact you too if they have questions, right?
Yes, you can either get me, here's a phone number. That is my email address, and certainly the website. So welcome any questions you guys have, and look forward to helping you get more educated and helping you have more chances to succeed in heading towards retirement. Thanks.
I am going to actually just check to see if we have any questions here. It looks like we do. I'm trying to just open up the window so I can actually read. Okay, here we go. So someone is asking, Rich, this is for you, to explain asset lock that was mentioned earlier in the webinar. What's asset lock and how is it used?
So if you send me an email, I will send you the link. Asset lock is a monitoring software that can be put on any investment account, any brokerage account, 401k, any retirement account. And what it does is it will allow you to monitor the performance. So, for example, if your account hits a new high, you'll get a text message saying, "Hey, congratulations, your account hit a new high." If you have a certain threshold, you say, "Look, this is as much as I feel comfortable with my account going down," it will send you alerts. So that's just it's a great tool. When we manage clients for when we manage investments for our clients, when that is put on the portfolio, we have automatic ways to immediately reposition the portfolio to get somebody out of harm's way. So, but on its most pure form, it's a monitoring service that will keep an eye on the accounts. Certainly would have been very nice to have, and especially given the fact that the market's at an all-time high. So hopefully that answers that question.
Sounds good, thanks. The second question I think is for me. When we said majority owned with respect to disqualified persons and entities, does that mean 50%? Yes, it does. And then the last question is a scenario. Can I use my IRA to loan to a rental property in the form of a mortgage if the rental property is owned by an LLC of which I own less than 50%. So on the surface, I don't necessarily see that being an issue, but there would be additional questions as far as who are the other owners of the LLC. Again, you want to make sure that they're not disqualified persons. But essentially what you could do is you could execute a promissory note to the LLC, I'm assuming, which would be owner of the property, and so your IRA could be a lender in that case. Yeah, so that could potentially be. I would like for us to probably talk through that a little bit to understand the scenario a little bit better. But hopefully that's helpful. And feel free to reach out if you want to discuss further.
Right. And then also, just as a quick follow-up to that, so there are very unique ways to own rental income properties. We do that quite a bit with our clients through self-directed IRAs. But as Brittany pointed out, it has to be done in a way that that does not run afoul of any any rules and make sure that the account runs in your favor. So certainly, either one of us can sit and have a further detailed conversation with you on that.
Thanks, Rich. That seems to be all the questions that we have. Oh, never mind. Something came in. Oh, okay. It was just a response from the person that the other LLC's members would not be disqualified. Okay. Yeah, so that helps somewhat. But yeah, I would say that it probably warrants just a little bit more conversation, probably on a one-on-one to just understand the situation a little bit more. Sometimes, unfortunately, there's gray area with certain scenarios, and the IRS isn't always black or white with their, what's constituted prohibited versus not. Which can be frustrating at times. But, based on what we've seen, our transactions/compliance team could discuss that further for sure. Okay, so if there are no further questions, we will end a little early today. Just as a reminder, you will receive a follow-up email with a copy of this recording. It probably will be tomorrow. And there will be just a little survey that pops up at the end here with 3 quick questions, if you don't mind sharing insights or any feedback you have, as well as any ideas for future webinars. What do you want to learn? What would you like to hear from us? We'd be happy to consider that. We're always looking for new ideas. So thanks again for your time. Thanks, Rich, for being on with us. I know I learned a lot from your session today as well, and definitely something that affects everyone. So I can't see why people would not be interested in understanding this. Right. But again, thanks everyone, and feel free to follow up if needed. Have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.